Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video on algebraic fractions. So what is an algebraic fraction? We already know what a fraction is. It's got something divided by something. It's a division. That line means divided by. So the thing on top we call the numerator, and on the bottom we call it the denominator. So it's important that you know these terms because I will refer to them all throughout this video. So what makes a fraction algebraic? Well, we're just going to be looking at fractions that also have pronumerals, i.e. letters, in them as well. And hopefully you will be relieved to know that the way we add, subtract, multiply, and divide algebraic fractions is exactly the same as how we do those operations for normal fractions. So let's have a look first at addition and subtraction. So let's look at just an easy example that you would have already done. So let's say I have something like a half plus a third, okay? Now, we know we can't just add the tops and add the bottoms. That is completely wrong. Remember, you can only add or subtract fractions when the denominators are equal. If they're not equal, like in this case, then what you need to do is find the LCD, which is the lowest common denominator. And that's just the lowest common multiple of the two denominators. So essentially what we do is we make the fractions have the same denominator first, then we add them. So for a half plus a third, the two denominators are 2 and 3. The lowest common multiple of 2 and 3, the lowest number that 2 goes into and also 3 goes into is 6. So what I want to do is I want to times the 2 here by 3, so the bottom becomes 6. I want to times the bottom here by 2, so that I get a 6. But what you do to the bottom of a fraction, you must also do to the top. So if I look at this first fraction, I have 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6. In the second fraction, 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. So you probably already knew before this video that a half and 3 over 6 are the same. Similarly, a third and 2 over 6, they are equivalent fractions. But we're using these equivalent fractions because now they have the same denominator and we can add or subtract easily. So it's not 5 over 12, it's 5 over 6. When you add or subtract fractions, the denominator does not change. You only add the numerators. So that's how we do for normal fractions. But what about if we had a letter in it? Well, we're going to do it exactly the same way. So let's say, for example, we have something like a over 3 plus a over 4. So same idea here, denominator 3, denominator 4, can't add them yet. We need to find the lowest common multiple. So the lowest common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. So I'm going to times top and bottom here by 4 and times top and bottom here by 3. So the first fraction becomes 4a over 12. The second fraction becomes 3a over 12. Now they have the same denominator. I simply add the numerators together. Okay, how easy is that? Now subtraction works very similarly. It's just at the last step you don't add the numerators, you subtract them. So let's look at an example where we use subtraction. So we're going to do a over 6 minus 2a over 15. So again, they don't have the same denominator. So in this case, it can be quite tricky sometimes to find the lowest common denominator. So when you do that, pick the larger denominator, which is 15, and we're going to go through multiples of 15. And decide which of them is divisible by 6. That'll help us find the lowest common denominator. So is 15 divisible by 6? No, absolutely not. Can't use that. Is 30 divisible by 6? Well, yeah, it is. So what I can do is times top and bottom here by 2 to make the denominator 30. And here I need to times by 5 to make the denominator 30. Remember, I can only add or subtract when denominators are the same. So the first fraction becomes 5a over 30. The next one, so 2a times 2 is 4a over 30. And now, instead of adding, we're going to subtract. 5a minus 4a is a, denominator stays the same. All right, let's have a look now at multiplication and division. So just before I show you multiplication and division, we need to know about simplifying. So remember, when you simplify a fraction, you find an equivalent fraction that has lower numbers in it. That's why it's said to be simpler. So you probably know that 20 over 40 is the same as a half. But a half, which is an equivalent fraction, is simpler because it has smaller numbers in it. And so when we simplify, we divide numerator and denominator by the highest common factor. Now, I know that this is very complicated, but you guys are very smart. I believe in you. When we're adding and subtracting, we need the lowest common multiple, the lowest common denominator to add or subtract the fractions. When we're simplifying, we don't use the lowest common multiple, we use the highest common factor. So highest common factor is simplifying, lowest common multiple is adding or subtracting. So when you simplify a fraction like 20 over 40, you find the highest number that goes into top and bottom. So 20 over 40, the highest number that goes into 20 and 40 is 20. So 20 divided by 20 gives us 1. 40 divided by 20 gives us 2. We divide top and bottom by the highest common factor. We do it no differently for an algebraic fraction. If you have something like 5a over 20, highest thing that goes into the top and the bottom here is 5. 5 goes into 5 and also goes into 20. Divide top by 5, divide bottom by 5. So 5a divided by 5 is a, 20 divided by 5 is 4. Sometimes you'll have to cancel out a letter. So for example, if I have 6a over 15a, so I can cross out an a because it's on the top and the bottom. Essentially, I'm dividing top and bottom by a. Now I find the highest common factor of the numbers. So I do the letters and the numbers separately. So what is the highest number that goes into 6 and 15? We found the lowest common multiple before. The highest number that goes into 6 and 15 is 3. So 3 goes into 6 2 times, 3 goes into 15 5 times. So I'm just left with 2 over 5. 6a over 15a is just 2 over 5. So simplifying is very helpful when we have to do multiplication. Multiplication and division is a lot easier for fractions because you don't need to worry about all that lowest common denominator business. You can multiply together two fractions even if they have different denominators. So for something like, let's say I have 7 over 5 times a over 3. Okay, you just multiply the top, 7 times a, and multiply the bottoms. Okay, that's easy, but sometimes there will be common factors on the top and the bottom. So let's say I had something like 10 over x times x over 4. So to make this as simple as possible, to make our answer simplified, I can cross out any common factors on the top and the bottom. So the x's, there's 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, I cancel them out. 10 and 4 have a common factor. 2 goes into 4 twice, it goes into 10 5 times. So again, I'm just left with 5 over 2. And that is my final answer. So simplifying helps you make sure that the multiplication's a little easier to do. So remember, with division, we're not going to do division of algebraic fractions any differently. If I had something like, let's say, 4 over 3 divided by 2 over 7, the way we do division is we flip the second fraction, so first fraction stays the same, flip the second fraction, make it a times, and we do just like we did up here. 4 times 7, 3 times 2. I can simplify my answer here. So 14 over 3. It doesn't matter whether I simplify after I've multiplied, as I did in this case, or before I multiplied, as in this case. Just know that your answer needs to be as simple as possible. Let's look at an algebraic fraction. So let's say I have 16 over 3x divided by 8 over x. So what you do, leave the first fraction the same, flip the second fraction and make it a times. So here I can cross out some common factors. There's 2 x's. So 8 goes into itself once, goes into 16 twice. So on the top, I'm just left with a 2, or a 2 times 1, and on the bottom, I'm left with a 3. How easy is that? Hope you've enjoyed this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.